Insight 56. For one who is focused greatly on sex, his intensely affected consciousness and sense of reality starts to define people and things according to the sexual point of view. One might be willing to be sexual with others, but right after the pleasure feeling has released its grip of the mind, the person ceases to define others according to a sexual outlook. The person might feel embarrassed or uneasy because one's original sober consciousness of others has returned and one sees the previously displayed actions as inappropriate. Yeah, so this happens to a lot of people, and this is the reason why. So, it's two different worlds according to two different consciousnesses, two different focuses. One focus, the mind is grabbed by sexual thoughts and sexual pleasures. Right after the pleasure feeling has released the grip of the mind. There you go. It's like when you're hungry. When you're hungry, you're thirsty, you want to have this, There's an emptiness in your stomach, and it's pronounced. It's very, you're quite aware of it. You're thirsty, you're quite aware of it. It makes a definite impact on you. And so you want to fill that void in your stomach, that thirst, quenching thirst in your system. So you eat and you drink and you feel good, pacified. It's like a cup that you fill with, and you fill that cup. So now the cup is full. You cannot fill a cup more than it can hold, generally speaking. Yeah. Here's a cup. You can fill it only to the top, just maybe a little bit more, but that's it. You fill more, it just pours out. It has no meaning. It has no definition. So you try to eat more than your fill, and you become, it's no longer pleasurable. You don't even want to have food or drink. Drink and food is no longer on your mind when you're full. There's nothing driving you to have it. Like a physical sensation of wanting to have it. Maybe taste-wise, yes, but the hunger-wise, no. Hunger-wise is not pulling you towards it to experience it. So just focus on the hunger part of it now, because I know it involves taste as well. Some people are totally full and still want to taste the food, so they may eat more than they're designed to eat. So, but we're talking about now. Focus on the pleasure of another pleasure, but the feeling of the stomach because of the hunger, that feeling. So, same is true with the sexual pleasure. When sexual pleasure, because of the senses, right, the genital organs, grabbing the attention of the mind, saying, "Please me, please me, please me. This feels good," right? Now, when the pleasure has passed, meaning it's fulfilled, just like that little cup is filled, the sensual pleasure is fulfilled, completed to the top. It cannot go more. You cannot add to it. It's just filled, right? Any more pleasure to the genital pleasure has no meaning at all, and so that's fulfilled. That's because it's fulfilled right there. It no longer grabs the attention of the mind. It's fulfilled. There you go. That's when the mind is released. It's interesting with some people might have this thing of even though the physical sensation is reached its maximum, the mental might drive them to want to have more, but they can't physically feel more, and so they're caught up in a interesting situation where they want to feel more. And it's a mental thing that's driving that mental part of it. the mental excitement of it is driving them. They want to experience more. Right, so the person's, once the mind is released from the mind is released from the pleasure, his focus is shifted from that pleasure view of the world to another thing. Pleasure is gone, and now he's focused on the world as it really is. He is now sober, aware of world and the identities that are there. Him, me, her, she's this, I'm a this is the workplace, this, that, so many things. And so now he feels embarrassed about his previous, a minute before, where he was sexually and pleasurefully driven to do acts that now it seems foreign to him. It's like in a different world. So he may have been engaged in activity that now he feels embarrassed about. This is why. Okay, Insight 57. The very moment that physical pleasure is gone, the pleasure feeling loses its grip on the mind, and the mind reverts back to its prior state of defining things. At this moment, the only pleasurable grip left to influence the mind is through memory of a sexual reality, such as the recent memory of the pleasure experienced. However, there is no prominent grip on the mind. One might find it puzzling how one got into the sexual state of mind just a second ago, and how that point of view suddenly magically disappeared. Release from the pleasure of the genitals is the key to freeing the pleasurable grip on the mind. The mind focused greatly on pleasure sees, or defines, others as possible suppliers of pleasure. The memory of the individual still remembers that a few moments ago a different reality was being experienced. This person might voluntarily choose to re-experience the lustful perspective. In parentheses, as explained in Insight number 3 and 4. Yeah, so what remains right after the pleasure is over? The pleasure is gone, lost its grip of the mind. Now only the memory remains. Just a second ago, I was in such pleasure. A different perspective. Now I have this perspective. Very interesting. You remember that you were in a different perspective. And some, like I said before, they may want to go back and re-experience that. The lustful perspective. Often happens to some people. They wait a while until the male genital organ is able to regain its strength and re-experience pleasure. Then they go into it again. This is possible. Memory of the individual still remembers that a few moments ago a different reality was being experienced. This person might voluntarily choose to re-experience the lustful perspective, as explained in Insight number 3 and 4. So one believes the lustful view is the correct view, the correct perspective, and therefore when he experiences a momentary perspective of the sober perspective, he defines that as false, and he goes back voluntarily to thinking in a lustful way, because he believes the lustful way of looking at things is the truth. Another person, more advanced, recognizes that the sober view of looking at people is the real way of looking at people, meaning is the correct perspective. But because he's not aware of the pleasures involved in there, he's not really entirely sure of where the pleasure really lies in that. Meaning, where is the pleasure in this? They're not aware of it. And so therefore, because they want to experience pleasure, they want to be in the state of experiencing pleasure, they go back to the lustful view to experience that. Insight number 58. There are many reasons other than sexual thoughts why the genital organs might get aroused. Whether one follows through and self-gratifies or not, it is important for the person to detect what led them to thoughts on sex. Upon gaining this understanding, then they are to be mentally aware and stay away from those situations that led one before to sexual arousal or to sexual thoughts. So, what is important is to identify what triggered the sexual arousal. For example, let's say you're on the internet and you're searching for plants. Unannounced to you, some of your search results are sexual in nature. You visit these sites and are caught in the web of self-pleasure again. Since the manipulators want to gain access to your mind, they connect any and every subject imaginable to sex. In this way, whatever you look up, you are bound to end up with many sexual results. Knowing this fact beforehand helps you not to be lured into their web. You are less likely to visit them when you know beforehand what to expect because you're prepared for it. So, what happens? You're looking up plants. You're not thinking anything sexual, and you're not expecting to receive anything sexual. In the search results. But so you look up plants. Plants come up and some sexual result, which just by the picture, you're just like, oh, you're affected. Now, why are you affected? Because you were surprised by it. You were not expecting it, and suddenly it comes, right? So how does that work? You were not expecting it, meaning it was abnormal from the results. Plants, and you have sex, oh my God, in a very weird way. So it's very, very powerful because you were not expecting it, It's like a surprise party. Surprise parties work because they impact the mind. Oh, you were not expecting it, and now there's a surprise party. Oh, surprise party, Or gifts are a surprise gift. Somebody brings you a surprise gift. Oh, very nice. And just because it was a surprise it adds to the impact on the mind. Smaller example is, let's say you go to your friend and you surprise him by putting your hands in front of his or her eyes, and ask who it is. Just getting involved with the person in a surprise manner adds pleasure because it impacts the mind. This is true in speech as well. Speech, you're talking to somebody, or actions. You're talking with somebody and you talk back in a witty way, a genuinely funny way, a genuinely interesting way, not like before. And so you're like, oh, the other person gets a mental, what's it called, impact, a mental impact, and also it's odd and unusual and in a unique way. And so they get it's a mental high of some sort. It adds to the pleasure of life. It impacts them. So they're like, oh, that's interesting. And so it makes their day ever so much better, adding to the pleasure of the experience of interacting with you, Same with actions. You could just toy around with the person who, banter back and forth verbally or physically, It adds to the experience because it's a surprise. It's not the same. If you give a joke to somebody, tell a joke to somebody or act in a certain way that has been done before, eventually it gets extremely tiring, the same old joke, like, oh, enough with that, It's no longer pleasurable. Why? It's no longer rare. It's not impactful to the mind. That's the same old thing. It's not surprising. Okay, good. Insight number 59. When asleep or at rest, the organ might get aroused. If upon waking you find that you are aroused, know that with a little stimulation you might be greatly inclined to complete the action. Therefore, staying away from contact is a good idea until arousal has passed. The sexual organ might be awake for a number of other reasons other than sexual arousal. The body is complex, and science has not found the reasoning of this phenomenon. It is interesting to note that the male genitalia are often in motion. They move very minutely, forward, extending itself, and then retreat. It moves side to side. The body's internal motion and rhythm might have something to do with it, The circulation of nutrition might be the reasoning. So, yes, okay. We're on insight number 60. Touch is healing to the body. However, the genitals do not get touched in the normal course of the day. Taking some time to touch them is healing. By this statement, I am not referring to the completion of the act necessarily, meaning self-pleasure. If, however, one gratifies oneself, one might feel guilty. This guilt feeling is not a positive or helpful thought. This guilt is a negative, discouraging feeling. It is good to get rid of the guilt feeling and feel all right and allow yourself to feel pleasure and self-pleasure. It is important to not allow guilt to stop you from thinking clearly. Think clearly and keep making progress in your self-analysis on how sexual thoughts arise in order to master your thoughts. So, imagine some person going throughout their whole life, and never massaging themselves, never touching their face, you know? So it's you know that person is extremely deprived. Touch is helpful. It is comforting. It is it's makes you feel alive. You know, get in touch with objects, get in touch with yourself. So, in this way, touch is healing. It is a part of self-awareness to know that you're here. This is how your body feels. I'm talking about just your face, your body, you know, your head, your entire body, including the genitals. So, I'm saying these statements to relax you and calm you. It's okay if you feel like touching your genitals. Okay, be okay about it, rather than feeling bad about it, feeling negative about it. Because essentially, you require you require clear thinking. You need your ability to think very precisely, deeply, subtly, very. You need your thinking ability to work very, very good to figure out your specific case of sexual attraction, your specific case of how your sexual thoughts arise, how and why. It's a very internal process. You need to do a lot of self-analysis on your own thinking, on your own mind, how it works, your own mind. So this, because the mind is subtle, you require your thinking to be as precise as your mind is. So you have to be very aware, and you can't have distractions and negative feelings and whatever else to get in the way of your ability to determine and identify your how your sexual thoughts arise, how your mind really works with this stuff. That's why the guilt feeling is a barrier, and you need to understand that. You need to recognize that when you have the guilt feeling, often it's a very negative feeling, and you get busy with that thought in your mind, the guilt feeling and feeling negative about yourself. Oh, you've done this, and you feel bad, and oh, you feel low, and you feel you feel ill. You feel as if something's wrong with you. Anyway, all this stuff does not allow you to think clearly, and you need to recognize that and get rid of this guilt feeling in order so that you can think clearly what is going on. So, if you should touch your genitals, okay. If you should engage in sexual self-pleasure, all right, no problem. Don't allow your guilt to rule your mind. You need to think clearly. Here I read a little bit about the explanation underneath. Throughout the day, our muscles get sore and tired. Massaging your body, exercising to warm up, stretch, and strengthening the body are essential. Massaging your own thighs, legs, and various parts of the body are beneficial to your body. Sometimes just touching or massaging your various body parts gives you a sense of well-being. The guilt feeling experienced by many after a self-pleasure episode creates more chaos in the mind, clouding the thinking process. The reason being that the individual not only has to think about the complexity of why he engaged in self-pleasure, but he also has guilt to contend with. He is already dumbfounded by the complexity of sexual attraction. Adding guilt to the equation only complicates the matter. What needs to occur is a reversal of chaos. What needs to occur is clarity and insight. Therefore, throw away guilt in order that you can remain focused in trying to understand how this sexual fixation works. It is very much like how when a student is in school cannot learn very well if they believe that they are a bad student. If the student is riddled with negativity, his learning aptitude is lowered tremendously. His learning aptitude, his ability to learn and do well in school is going to be tremendously lowered if he thinks he's just a bad student, a bad person. He's incapable of learning. If he believes these things, then it lowers his ability. The student's attitude, the way he thinks of himself, and his clarity of mind, thinking ability, cleverness, and being positive and receptive are as important as the teacher who is teaching him. So you have a teacher, everybody knows you need a good teacher, but also you need a good student. The teacher is like a tall, delicious glass of cranberry juice or orange juice, your favorite delicious fruit juice, and the student is like a cup. Both are important. If the cup is muddied, full of mud, or hints of mud in and around it, or has some other kind of pollutant that is not cranberry juice, some other juice, some other liquid, or some other dense material is in the cup, like pudding or whatever is on the inside of the cup. You pour the cranberry juice into that cup, the cranberry juice will not taste right. So the cup is very important to be clear, clean. That's why you wash your dishes before you eat the food. That's the first thing you do. Dishes have to be prepared. You wash it. That's what you need. You don't leave dishes around dirty. No, you wash them. You wash them, dry them, they're clear. You have that ready. You do that before anything else. After you eat food, you wash your dishes. It's a thing, you just don't leave them around. And when you want to have food, go get your dirty dishes and wash them to get the food. No, you already have washed them because that is so very necessary. If you leave the dirty dishes, it's bacteria is going to grow and the spread is terrible. Okay, so. So you gotta recognize the guilt feeling as a barrier, a big barrier. Just think of it scientifically, with complete reasoning that it's in your way, stops you from observe yourself when you have guilt. How do you feel? Can you think very clearly? You realize no, because guilt is bothering you. So you have to recognize to get rid of it. So if you self-pleasure, you have to be aware We've talked about this before. You have to be aware. Remain aware. Okay, we're on insight number 61. And this is the end of chapter 3. Insight 61. Often, immediately before sexual pleasure, one might choose to purposefully go into a self-induced state of mind. One might remind oneself of the differences between the sexes, the differences between the identities, the rarity or oddity of the sexual encounter, and the rarity of its pleasure. Putting oneself in this mode is actually a deep focus of the mind on the personal sexual situation. The personal sexual situation is a combination of the both. By creating differences, or heightening the awareness of the differences of the other party, themselves, and the situation in order to actually heighten the mental pleasure, one thereby apparently, not actually, heightens the physical pleasure of the encounter. So yeah, just before getting into sexual pleasure, one finds often that people put themselves into a mood, into a different way of thinking, to see the other person and themselves as quite different, to see the bodies as quite different, to see the activities that they're going to get involved with quite different, to see their specific bodily parts for sexual interaction to be quite different, to think of the other person's feelings and thoughts and sensations as different. All these things are tantalizing the brain, the mind, heightening the differences. Therefore, you're to the mental high, and it gives the impression that the physical experience is going to be also more awesome, but actually it's a mental high that is actually providing the powerful impact. Okay, we're Insight 62, Chapter 4, True Insightful Information. You are to decide and direct your mind to live out your life in the world. You are not to have the world decide and direct your mind on how to live your life. Sure, to a degree, we take direction and lessons, teachings from our friends, our family, father, mother, teachers, governmental organizations, and all kinds of things. We learn. Without learning these things, we cannot improve upon them. But it doesn't mean that we have to have others always decide for us, to govern us, to tell us exactly how to do what, when, where, and how. You're not a robot. I'm going to read a little bit about this. It is job of the mind to be the mediator between you and the world outside. The mind has to be able to tell what is going on outside of you and to inform you on the inside, as well as the mind is supposed to take direction from you on the inside and direct your bodily organs to interact with the world on the outside. However, the mind, while focusing on the outside world, tends to keep focusing on the outside world and forget about you on the inside. Because the outside world is so much is going on, and it tends to get the mind busy on those stuff, instead of focusing on you. You're caught up in the world of the outside, with your mind constantly doing its job of surveying the land and trying to make sense out of its shapes, colors, smells, tastes, sizes, thoughts, distractions, and dramas, and ultimately believing the outside reality and living according to its laws, principles, pleasures, and its realities, even though the laws and principles, pleasures, and its realities might be not real at all. Here I'm encouraging you to be very honest with yourself. You feel within yourself your thoughts, your feelings. You don't know what's going on the outside. They're telling you this and that about a whole bunch of stuff. You don't know. I'll give you an example. You have people supposedly representing you in the various governments. Really? Do they really know you? Do they really listen to you? Or do we get the impression that no, they really don't really listen? you know? So a whole bunch of stuff is going on. I mean, you saw the priest scandal with the abusing of the children, right? I mean, here we are, a lot of people believing that the priest is good, and so we can leave our kids with the priest. Who are we to trust if we can't trust the priest? Right? This seems normal thinking, but the truth is, we don't know who this priest is, really, or anybody. We don't know, and you got to admit that. This is being truthful, honest with yourself. You know about yourself. You don't know about others. They seem to go to the church, and have been there for many years, but you don't know them, So I'm not just talking about priests, I'm talking about any and everybody outside of you. You don't know their reality. They can say whatever they want on the outside and make themselves look picture perfect in so many ways, presenting themselves in so many ways. But on the inside, you don't know how they are. You have no access to their inside. You don't know how they think and really feel. So this is what this is talking about. You can't have somebody else on the outside at any level, in any organization or even individuals, businesses, whatever, telling you something and you just believe in it automatically. No, you can't do that. Even if you have facts, figures, and all kinds of stuff. We don't know. Same with me. You don't really know me. Here I'm, making programs, video lessons on this stuff, and telling you I have had these various experiences of all sorts, and I've of course overcome lust. But you don't know that, and you have to admit that to yourself. A good teacher doesn't go around saying, just believe me. No, he wants you to think on your own, and see if the information makes sense. Does 1 and 1 equal 2? Nobody goes to learn math and the teacher says, okay, everybody, 1 and 1 is 2, believe me. No. You learn the principles of math, and it shows it to you in life how it actually works, how it works, and so it makes sense to you in actuality, not by theoretics, theories. So this is very important about the mind. So many people get tricked in so many ways by philosophies, by scientific, so-called scientific whatever, when it's not really scientific, not really truthful, by all sorts of things, all sorts of theories. So many people in America and other places around the world have lost their houses and I don't know. I'm in 2009. 2015, and you got so many banking scandals. Every week there's something in there about the bank. Bank did this, bank did that. Stole the money, did this and did that. What is going on? You don't know what's going on. Okay, so here this is describing, hey, be in charge of yourself. Make your own reality. In other words, You feel this way, make it. You are to put your imprint on the world, not to just allow the world for you to sit there passively and have somebody else decide for you how your world is going to be like, how you are to live your life. Hey, if it's something good and it makes sense to you, hey, I'm all for it. But even then, you got to make the decision and say, and the free decision and choice, go, oh, okay, I will take into consideration what you have to say, whoever is saying it to you. And you have to be able to have a free thinking ability to decide and consider various perspectives, not just one. Okay, insight number 63. If you continuously believe the pseudo-reality, meaning the made-up reality, which others feed you as truth. Again, if you continuously believe the pseudo-reality, the made-up reality which others feed you as truth, you will not overcome being too sexual. You will not be free from all the unsound ideas being projected at you. Because essentially that's what's happening. Somebody on a video screen is displaying to you a certain reality. It's their reality. Are you going to believe it? And say, oh yeah, this is what it is, this is true, he's telling me. Well, then you're never going to get over it. Get over their reality. Whether it's real or not, their version of reality. I'm going to read the explanation here. If you continuously believe that what others tell you or show you, then you are under their control. Where's your perspective? What do you think? Could somebody be lying to you for whatever reason? They can sell you anything, be it ice cream or their idea of what sex is about. You have to be a critical thinker and not just accept what others tell you or show you to be real. That pretty much is understandable, right? That says it, right? I want you to give me some examples in your life where things are not what they appear to be. I want you to give me 7 examples. I don't want you to keep search for them. Just relax and they'll appear. Because they're all over the place. Okay? They'll appear. Things that lies. Things that are different and what their reality. Things that are not real. Okay. Things that are different. And I'm going to give you an example. So, oh God, there was this thing in I don't know, past year in London. There was this some of these supermarkets were advertising low prices. They found out that many of the supermarkets were buying very cheap meat that was being sold to them, and in this meat they had also other types of meat, such as horse meat and other types of meat mixed in there. They found horse DNA in, for example, beef, as an example, where it's not supposed to be, in chicken and other things. It's all mixed up, and they're wondering what the heck's going on, So that's one example. So you want to buy beef, and then they say it's horse meat in there. Oh my God, horse meat is in there. What the heck is horse meat in here? That's one example.